This special software showcase features a final demo from our April 2025 hackathon. Let's take a look.
Yeah, I mean the short title was USFM WYSIWYG, which you see what you get, sort of text editor. There's a number of things, whether it's like Joe with HTR, or it's just get a raw text area back. There's a couple places that it feels like there's some pain points with, Craig talked about getting things in and out of Writer, and Writer supports a very limited subset of USFM. So took a look at just kind of the landscape of editing USFM. It was a large exercise in copy pasta, but a little, yeah, that worked. All right, so I already have some USFM wizard in here. It just does it on page load. To get started, it stays out of your way, but it's just it starts off with what looks like a really plain editor. But in terms of being a WYSIWYG, there are markers for everything underneath. And the editor is, it's Facebook's essentially newish, a couple years old editor. It's called Lexical. And what it gives you is an abstracted away data model for handling what is essentially a giant blob of text. So you get a lot of control on what's going in here. So there are markers underneath. This is just like first half of, well, it's first couple chapters from Genesis from the NULB. But you don't have to ever look at those. I mean, part of the points of WYSIWYG. That said, in terms of all your typical like keyboard things, command delete, option delete, to one word at a time, it's all just going to be for free. In terms of inserting stuff, if you know what you're doing with markers, you can just go backslash and then whatever the verse is, and we can kind of keep track of whatever the previous one and just type. You could go to a new chapter. Oh, sorry, space is the one there. Or you can find any hotkeys you sort of want stuff. So on mine right now it's control slash. You'd put, let me scroll my whole page a little bit. And then you have quotes, whatever. So, and then, you could limit this and you have, larger set of explanations of what and there's that. There is the ability to, particularly with USFM has a part of the spec that allows you to put custom attributes in it. One of that is basically that's your portal to whatever your application wants to do. So you could have commenting built into your application. If you wanted to go back and discuss how should this be done, how should that be done. Right now, this is just saved here, but plenty of test data. And then you could reload that and persist it. There's the control you can mention throughout certain sections. If you want to say, hey, here's how we did it here, scroll to and from things with mentions. So, and this is within the actual USFM itself, but you can strip this all back out really easily when you're serializing from what your editor has to back to spec compliant USFM. So if we close this, if we save back to USFM, things in my way, you can see you could leave it in there. You could export a version for your application to do your application's own things. So you can see there's a milestone marker here.
Oh, so you just created a custom marker there, looks like.
Yeah. And you could make a new one with this little comment button. You could highlight something for your comment. But then, when your application, you want to say, I need something that's compliant that other folks can handle, we'll just save it back to USFM, no comments. And now we have back to spec compliant USFM or whatever. Pull out any markers that you do or don't support, or do or don't want to keep if you have a bunch of additional stuff. And this is kind of, that custom attribute section is really the portal into how like word align USFM works. Is it's essentially a USFM tag. This Z namespace, which is custom, and then you can put as many attributes as you want. And so then you get Strong's number, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then you can pull all of it back out if you want to simplify it, or you can keep it all there for your application to deal with. Because you get a good bit of control from your editor itself, kind of restart over here. You can check versification. You know how many verses should be in this chapter from some sort of external set of rules. We can, you could, whatever you want. We can count words over there on the right. See that?
Oh, yeah.
You could count, we just delete a giant section, chapter. You don't have to expose all this, but if you wanted to glance, you can do any of that. So there's quite a bit of power. I mean, this is obviously tailored towards USFM. You could, other thing. And let's say this is kind of a revision type process. If you already have something loaded in from some done, you could start though, and we could do scaffold from empty. And then we can say, we can feed it out, and I have a source text that already has markers. And we're going to keep the markers from the source text, like that's part of what we're doing. And so then we could go here, and we could just tab our way through them. And it'll follow over on the right. So if I were a translator, depending on whether we're doing chunking stuff or not, but you could do that too. You could render chunk by chunk. You can do that. If you wanted to keep chunk type markers, whether S5 or the actual appropriate translator section marker. And this will just scroll with me, and
It's really cool.
do all that. So we can change it back to what a blocks look like. So plenty of power beyond just having HTML when you can kind of control the abstract data model. So this will let you, I think this is all that I have built in. Theirs is much more like writing posts on Facebook. If you want to see what all you can do though, you can go to Lexical's actual playground, and there's keyboard shortcuts to register to anything and everything you want. So you can pretty much scope it out as fully featured as you want, or you can pull it back. Keep it fairly simple. In terms of ideas, they do have some stuff in the framework itself for live collaboration over WebSockets. So if we had something where we wanted folks to really be working at the same time, there's stuff already there to work over WebSockets. There's almost the bones in place for not an LSP in like the official sense, but almost in a language server protocol, because you can serialize back to USFM from your editor site. You can send that to something like what Ruben has, who has a linter and has a parser, which apparently is getting faster by the day. And then he can send there and send you back from application code, never really worrying about linting, and says, hey, this is malformed. Hey, this has problems. And then the text editor is going to give you the ability to go in and wrap things with little red squigglies for spell check. Or you can send that off to Craig's spell checker type stuff. Because they get me all the verses, get me all the chapters, or get me all of whatever, just raw text pieces. So there's really kind of the foundations there to have linting and a view of, but something that's very friendly in terms of how it looks. So you could pop it into HDR with transcriber. It's really easy to kind of get all the text and get the USM out of the way. You could create embeddings on the fly as you do any of this stuff. So that's what we did.
That's great. Really good. So that's not something you got from BiblioNexus. That's
No, I pulled lots of their pieces out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that monorepo holds, let's see, okay. Things in the way. Yeah. So
as cool as Craig's, hey, let's get OpenAI or whoever to fix our USFM back. Really, I think what would be even cooler would be if we could just work off the consolidated repo, expose it in here, have the translation team like, this is what it looks like, go in and fix stuff, don't screw up the formatting.
Yeah, so if you had like, I don't even know if you want, you could have connect folks to Wax and say assign tasks. There's plenty of it's a computer. I think John Wood said it's ones and zeros. You can do literally anything with enough time and money. So, but a lot of this was pieces that I pulled out of BiblioNexus, which this is their mono repo. And so they have a lot of shared code for the new Scribe editor, for Paranext, or Platform.Bible, whichever one they're calling it. What else? The Proscoma ecosystem writes to a data format. They have some utilities in here for dealing with like how Proscoma manages things. So I pulled a lot of it out, and this is a selection of some of their stuff that I wanted to get my head around how it worked.
It's really good. I do think it would be good to have some kind of error checking or linting, like you started adding verses that already exist, and it'd be great if it would be like, oh, you have 2 3s here, like red squiggly them or whatever, but it's down track for sure.
Yeah.
Really cool. Yeah. Good.
Let's say that I hate keyboard shortcuts. Do you think we could make a ribbon and you toggle things?
Yeah, that's what I did with some of these buttons. So the same way they have their ribbon up here, and you could insert whatever.
You just have it turned off right now, or you didn't turn it on?
I did some of these things. I mean, like seeing markers, don't see markers,
Right.
block view, no block view. I just didn't have a button for insert marker. I just did that one. It's just
Yeah, but like you could do one that's like toggle on quotations and then I'm typing quotations and then I toggle off and I'm no longer typing quotations.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is this all web-based?
Yeah, this is all the web right here.
So it's always on, doesn't look, I mean, you were running it locally.
Yeah, I didn't worry about trying to deploy any of this per se right now. I spent a little while this morning trying to get WebSockets hooked up, but I had some issues. But you could have it as a progressive web app, and then the only dependency would,
Sync up when you have.
yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know how this one handles it, and there is some special stuff in the BiblioNexus code because footnotes, they have their source and then the actual kind of destination for you to scroll to them. Under the hood, though, you basically take. So what this is it's USFM, but it's actually United Scriptural JSON. There's a parser out there that'll go from USFM to USJ, and then the advantage being USJ lets you control what you render to. So you basically say, once I get a footnote, what do you want to handle it as? Do you want to stick, a little hyperlink right here at the end of this, and then we can stick the actual footnote in a separate piece on the screen? Or is it, to go in the middle of the chapter? So
That's an unimplemented feature at this point.
yeah, I didn't worry about full support for like every single node. You can handle them, and a lot of them get bunched together. Like the car nodes wrap text, so bold comes out of the box. That wouldn't. Well, sorry, we wouldn't bold things, but
So we'll
that's
handle
on the editor.
ones that need a beginning and ending code.
What?
It will handle the ones that need a beginning and ending marker.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, so we could take it to where this.
Very nice.
Same way this is bold. You could get it to where when you had a selection, it'll wrap that with the start tag and end tag for. I don't know all the USM chars, but
Right.
the ones that do wrap. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know if there's any in here. I would have a larger section just to scroll through, but this parser is a little bit slow. So I had quite a few conversations with Ruben about, the USJ gives you a data model that you get to handle what happens with it. But although you can serialize and deserialize from HTML as well. But
Since this is based on meta technology, is it like React under the hood, or is
it
it?
doesn't have to be. They have like first class support for some React plugins. But you can go vanilla JavaScript.
Oh, nice. That's good news.
So you could have bindings that are only vanilla JavaScript and expose that to HTR or somewhere else.
Awesome.
How does it handle fonts and right to left?
I think I have native support for right to left. It's HTML, so if you just like set the whole thing as right to left, I have a feeling it would understand, but there may be something in the config which helps with all the like selection primitives. So when you're trying to traverse a tree, it knows which direction to go with some of that stuff. I know BiblioNexus has some right to left code in there for handling it. So as large as Meta is, I would be very surprised. I mean, if there weren't some,
But there's nothing exposed in this that would allow us to toggle that.
not in my selective demo. Yeah. Yeah. That mono repo is about 600 commits deep and I have a selection of them.
Right, so once again, your demo has led all the questions towards future work, so it sounds like there's interest in this.
Oh, yeah.
So that's good for us to know for the calendar. Anything further that you're like, hey, if I had another couple days, things you immediately wanted to do?
WebSockets are interesting. I don't know if they're our most immediate use case. I actually think asynchronous sync is a bigger problem that's more likely to be applicable to us than communicating over a socket. But
Mhm.
there's a few quirks with the framework that I haven't quite figured out the best way to handle. Places where you can kind of end up trapped because there's like you can't get into a DOM node because there's no space there. And so there's a few places you have to be a little granular with things, but I think it would just depend on what our requirements or product owner needed out of the end thing.
Good job, man.
Yeah.